Hey everyone, it's Anya. Welcome to my channel, the Season of Anya, where we are a group of spiritual seekers, witches, yogis, and everybody who's just looking to explore a deeper, meaningful spiritual path filled with transformation and abundance and a life worth living. Today, I am so excited to bring my guest speaker, my high priestess, my witchy mentor, Miss Taren S. of the House of Witchcraft. Hi, Taren.
Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be here today, especially when we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is Hecate.
Woo! Yes, and so with that, we are going to discuss the many changing faces of Hecate. She's a goddess who's been around for a millennia, quite literally, and Taryn also brings a really awesome academic approach to the way she discusses and teaches witchcraft, as well as that kind of anecdotal ancestral wisdom. So, without further ado, let's get right into it with pre-Greek incarnations of Hecate, because she actually didn't stem from Greece.
Yes, that is so true, Anya. I know that right now it seems the Hellenic traditions of Hecate are very trendy, and that we have to remember that that is only one of her faces, and that's actually a modern face when we think about the roots of her, because we do know that she goes all the way back into Anatolia, the Carian region, we call modern day Turkey. And in these communities, she was a torch bearing goddess that appeared in inscriptions. We see her very locally. And at this time, she's not a dark goddess. She's not associated to the crossroads. What we're finding is she's a protector of doorways. She's very much a family protector, a city protector type. And I think, a lot of times, like I said, it's very trendy for the Greek side of her, where she's already fully developed into that crossroads tradition. And at this point, we're starting to see some of that liminality come out with her dark space. But where we find her, what's so fascinating is we're in the Fertile Crescent when we talk about modern day Turkey, or we're talking about Anatolia, getting all the way back into the very beginnings of religion, the very beginnings of. And sometimes we have a hard time with this concept, where or thinking about how many thousands and thousands of years ago this was. And so I think for a lot of folks, it's hard to, like you said, a millennia to understand that we're talking, we do have 4,000 or 5,000 years that we know for a fact. Some of the earlier facts we're not quite sure of, but later on, when she does get into Greece, when she gets into the Greek pantheon, more is written about their relationship with her. So we do have more of an understanding. And I don't want to keep talking too long because I'm like, I could sit here and start talking when we're talking about the history of religion before it had a name. This is where we're getting back into the Venus statues, the Willendorfs, that voluptuous. And we know that Hecate herself, in her these earliest depictions of her, she's part of that Venus look. She's very much a woman. She gets some boobs, she gets some butt. I mean, and I think that's one of the
Love
things I
it.
love about her, you know. But we're seeing those there, so we know she's coming out from somewhere in the midst of time. And then the Greeks come into play with their conquest. And the Greeks so much weren't a conquest, you must do it our way, as much as they were an assimilator. And Hecate had a really great story. They related to her, so she was brought into the Greek mythology.
Beautiful. And with that, with the when she was brought into Greek mythology, how was her depiction? Was she still kind of that typical, if you will, Venus, Aphrodite, voluptuous, or is that when she started venturing into the triple goddess aspect as we knew her as?
We actually don't see the triple god aspect until we see the building of the Roman temples. And that was only done just so that the actual statues went around the temple. Excuse me. During the classical period, fancy words here, folks. We're all going to act like, all right, this would be 5th, 4th century BCE. This is Greek at its finest. It's the classical period, all right? uh, she very much became an active role within the Greek pantheon. That's where she's getting included in the stories as part of the Demeter, Persephone. We see that beginnings, that those myths coming into play. And again, she's still a liminal doorway, because in the earliest myths of Persephone, it is the Hecate's liminality, her ability to go into the underworld, her ability to go into the cave, her, to go through these. Again, she's still more of a mother figure at this point, because
And I,
she's giving words to Persephone to comfort her.
yes, yes. Um,
Go
I'm
ahead.
like, you said you didn't want to, go on, but this is exactly why I brought you on the channel because you do provide this really depth richness to the academia perspective of what we do because it's important to know that these figures have been around for as long as they have. And um from what I'm understanding, though, in as far as ancient Greece goes, when she started being associated with crossroads, liminality, is that when she got her name? Was she named Hecate, or was it more this association pre-Greek and that developed into the Grecian era,
It
classical
was
era?
in Greek where we start seeing more shrines to her on the crossroads for safe travel.
Mm,
She becomes for travel purposes, where they've taken her out of the home doorway. They've taken her out of the doorway of the city, because cities used to
right.
actually have doorways. Um, and they're starting to put her on the road as a safe travel goddess. And this is where we're starting to see that association to the crossroads. The crossroads themselves are very liminal spaces, so it's very easy to put, like I said, she's already the goddess of the doorway. It just blends so easy into the goddess of the crossroads. That's one of the things, none of the gods and goddesses, I don't care what pantheon you're, uh, they've all evolved over time to, I think, a lot like with Hecate meets us where we are. And she was meeting those people where they are.
Well, and that leads me to
And
believe.
that's what they needed to see.
Well, and that exactly to that point, I'm like, you said she was very much associated as the mother figure in this era. So it makes me wonder, as somebody who's on my journey with Hecate, she has very much been in, like, say, the crone era for me personally. It makes me wonder, as society, what did we need? What did society need in this Grecian classical era that the mother was so pertinent, was so needed in culture.
Um, a lot of women died and you didn't have a mom. I'm not being mad. I'm like sitting here thinking, well, the truth of the matter, their mother figures were highly prized in their society. And for whatever reason, that's the way Hecate related to those people. We see later on where she starts to change to be able to relate to people differently, because they live differently now. Ancient Greek those citizens don't have our problems and we don't have their problems.
Thank goodness. I-
I don't want their problems. They probably don't want my problems. It's mutual. It's how I'm feeling.
That,
Where
you
they've
know
just,
what? Yes, exactly. Though that modern, those modern problems of getting the Wi-Fi to work, it's like, yeah, you had the plague, you had to have like your whole damn city like locked and boarded. But you know what? You didn't have to deal with Wi-Fi and the hustle and bustle. Life was definitely simpler back then. So I respect that.
and from the very beginning, she was a personal relationship goddess.
Ah,
She was not a goddess that you went to the temple to pray to. She was in
oh,
your doorway.
true. Ah.
Think of it, she was a very personal relationship with folks. She was already in your house. She was protecting your doorway. She was protecting the doorway of your city. And then later on, she became the protector of the road that your family traveled on.
Familial, though, I see that
Yeah.
theme with her in a constant. It is a very familial theme.
And when the offerings of Hecate change during these different time periods, what they were doing in early Anatolia, their offerings would be a lot of grain-based offerings. Why? Because they grew them. They were
We
quite
have this
literally,
here.
literally taking a plate. This is what we've cooked for the family tonight. Let's give an offering. It wasn't special. That wasn't happening yet. Later on for her feast, we do start serving special meals. But again, at this time, she was like almost like a member of the family.
Well, and that provides a very different perspective when you place that there, because now I feel like we definitely just in society, I mean, at least in my experience through my spiritual journey, which started with Catholicism, and like, yeah, you had Jesus inside the house, but there was still this level of Godhead that definitely exists with Hecate, but also when we're really talking about this, I mean, we're going back to ancient Greece where it's like, yeah, I mean, the town went to the temples. So that makes me wonder
We didn't
how.
see her first temple being built until the second century BCE. It was built by the Greeks, but a lot of archaeologists, anthropologists really feel that the Greeks were being very heavily influenced by this earlier reverence, worship, relationship with Hecate. You know, we can trace her back, 2,500 years before this temple's ever built.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the Greeks, true to form, like to build a temple to everything. It's one of their pastimes if you really get into all the temples that the Greeks built. And they were the ones that built the first temple to Hecate, where we would see what we're talking about, those feastings, those processions, where it was a grand, because at this time it was very much would have been a theatrical experience to go to the temple.
Ooh. In what regard?
Well, they had like little chutes that they could blow smoke into so that it would look like smoke was coming out around the statues. They had water weights so that it could look like things were raising up or lowering, depending on the effect they wanted. They had sound effects where they had people standing in the back doing the thunder. I mean,
Yes.
they were playing music. It was like I said, it was a theatrical concert to go to.
Evocative. It was a performance, but a
Dancing,
living art.
yes. We think of it, especially if we're coming out of any type of the Abriatic traditions where it's, these people can sing hallelujah less than joyful. where, you're just standing there like droning on. Whereas for the Greeks, it was a giant party.
I like the way
You,
the way Greeks got down, lived life, you know?
and they did in their temples and in their celebrations. And that's where we start seeing, again, another face of Hecate starting to come out. Um, where you had referenced the three faces, the maiden, mother, crone, which is very, we say, modern uh, relationship with Hecate. And this is where nothing is wrong. All of these are correct. If she comes to you as a maiden, then that's the relationship you're meant to have with her. If she comes to you as a mother, that's the relationship you get to have. If she comes as a crone, because we really do see her slowly evolving over into that crone wisdom, especially with our modern day revival, our awareness of her. Where I think, like you said, right now we need the crone. We need her old, solid wisdom to help guide us, because it's shitty out there. Um,
It,
but
it it is. And before we get into that, let's explore the fact that we had her medieval era, which was very much rooted in Christianity. She was still around, but she looked a little bit different during that era.
right. That's where we do see we're coming out of the Greeks and into the Romans, because the Romans, for, 500 years, continued building little shrines to her. That's where she really started becoming the crossroads goddess. Where in Roman times, there was shrines would have been like basically a pile of cool rocks, or it could have
Yeah.
been built up to be like just a little alcove. They were not like really elaborate, but they still were very intentional. And this is where that the shifting of her, the way the world is shifting, so too she is shifting, because as the fall of the Roman Empire, Hecate became more of a folk magic. More, she never left. She sort of went underground. Those that still honored the old ways, found her temple. Those still lit candles to her in the crossroads. By this time, she very much was established, because the Romans had started with at dusk, another liminality time. So we're starting to see her shift over into that night, where she is now starting to pick up more darker aspects, where her liminality is being celebrated. And it was, the folk magic, uh, it was very much about invoking an old god to help with protection, to help with healing.
Well,
And
and
then, like, go ahead.
yeah, on top of that too, this is kind of when she segued to being very much more associated with graveyards as well, right?
We see that during the occult revival in the 19th century.
We don't see it during the time of death in the medieval era. I would have thought for sure.
No, she's not a death goddess.
Well, fair,
She
fair.
wasn't a she was not associated to the dead. I mean, she still really isn't associated to the dead even now. I mean, she may be for some people. And this is where you have to, if this is how somebody, they're like, oh, well, this is how I'm relating to Hecate. That is correct. That's why
Right,
there is no one book that says we all must do this to have a relationship with Hecate, or as some people even address her as Hekate.
right. Didn't put
And
that
both are
disclaimer.
correct.
Yes.
Right.
Well, exactly. And I could see the natural progression of crone just naturally. I mean, yes, I personally don't necessarily associate her with graveyards, but I could also see crone death. I mean, it's all right there for the picking, and especially during that era. Um, but yeah,
Right.
it's personal.
What we the late 19th century, which would be the late 1800s,
Gotcha.
was the beginning of the spiritualist movement.
Right.
That's where we can talk to dead people. And at the same time was called the time of occult revival. That was where we have the OTO starting to found, the Order of the Golden Dawn, Madame Blavatsky. I can't say her name right, Bolansky. Um, but there were all these occult groups because they had access to some newly revealed older manuscripts, the Chaldean oracles, all
Yes.
right, and which were a second century BCE manuscript and which were found. And in that, Hekate is mentioned as more of a cosmic world soul figure. There was the beginnings of what you're talking about, where we're touching on the graveyard, the death.
Mm,
All right. But she was a powerful guide for initiates seeking deeper realms of knowledge. And actually, in the Golden Dawn, they would call her the innatrix, keeper of the threshold, and queen of the liminal flame.
mm. I didn't know that.
All right, she had a very big, well, not big, but she had a significant role in this occult revival. This was setting the foundations for later on, where we have Aleister Crowley, where he got his knowledge from was off of these early occult groups. And so, again, we're seeing her, Hecate, starting to come into this space of death, but it's not really death, it's just the space of the soul.
Oh,
She is a guide. Yeah, her complexity is what I love about her. It's like, every couple of 100 years, Hecate's like, let me show you something new.
right. Keeping us connected to our magic, keeping us connected to the liminal space, to the crossroads, to magic. I mean, right?
And, right. And this is, a goddess, an entity, a deity, hell, an energy form that for whatever reason folks have acknowledged for over 5,000 years now.
I mean, we really don't have deities with, I mean, very few, but I mean, really, I mean, we have the eternal God figure, but even then, like Jesus Christ wasn't, that era, that's only 2000 years. Not that it's like a, competition or anything, but it's interesting to really understand that whatever it is about her energy, her Hecate herself, this deity, this figure, it is something that is tried and true through spirituality, because there's always trends in spirituality. I mean, some could say witchcraft is trendy right now, witchcraft. I'm sure this era, like aside from modern, but just this resurgence in like the last 3 years has yet to have a name. And because talk about being in
Yeah,
crossroads energy.
in 100 years from now, they'll refer to the modern witchcraft era.
With that, some people would refer to Wicca as like the Wiccan era as modern witchcraft, at least as it stands now. What are your thoughts about that, first of all?
Absolutely. I mean, modern Wicca comes to us out of the 1950s, Gerald Gardner. But Gerald Gardner took the occult revival information, took all of this, and then wrapped a little bit of fantasy and folk magic around it. And it was something that really resonated with people, and it still resonates with people as a way to have a relationship with divinity, as a way for them to understand the world a little better. Just because it's in antiquity doesn't mean it's good. We were talking about, these different faces of Hecate. And people that get in these splitting hair arguments. And, I'm like, unless you were standing in ancient Greece, unless you were standing in a Roman temple, unless you were standing in Anatolia, yeah, you don't know.
You
All
don't.
right. And I think the biggest thing that we have to be careful when we're developing a relationship with any divinity is to allow other people to inspire us, not to feel like that we have to do exactly what they're doing.
That is a great point. With her in the Wiccan era, you mentioned a little bit like kind of more of a like a fantasy era, and such like that. Did she have, I mean, was it just she was the face of witchcraft, would you say, during that time? Because Wicca, right? I mean, that's the first time we're really calling
Well,
it witchcraft.
Wicca has its own, because Wicca originally, they were devotees to the god, how do you say, the beginning of Wicca. They actually never called themselves Wiccans, so that gets even more complicated. But their first book out was about the goddess Aradia.
I didn't
Um,
know that.
yeah, it was a secret. We're not supposed to tell anybody.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
realize that. I love that, but that's a different video.
that's a whole different thing on the
I'm like,
Wiccans, and but
uh,
um, Gardner was very much influenced by Aleister Crowley, who
hmm.
again was very much influenced by the OTO and the Golden Dawn that had really gone down the Chaldean oracle papers, where Hecate very much at this point was becoming a goddess of witchcraft, a goddess of magic.
Mm,
And at the same time, they saw pictures of some of the Roman temples where you had the three Hecates together, and they put on it the triple goddess. You
got
know,
it.
that's Margaret Murray was the first one to bring it about, and then Gerald Gardner went, "That's right. There was this ancient goddess, Maiden Mother Crone. She's from far, far long ago, and all this." And that's where he made a mistake. It it isn't ancient. It isn't from antiquity. It's a new way of relating to Hecate, and there's nothing wrong with that. Each era has a new way of relating to Hecate. And so I think they were just falling in line with that. And again, we were getting access to so much more information. Some of our, manuscripts of antiquity were being translated. And so we had, more knowledge that we could draw upon. They only had the knowledge they had at the time, and we always have to remember that it wasn't they were like we didn't know. They really didn't know. And so that was the beginning of the Maiden Mother Crone, and which very much was embraced and needed, and it's still needed today. It's become within itself its own beautiful force of energy for many people. And I think that is one of the way Hecate, as she's evolved over and become all of these things, is how she relates to modern folks, both inside and outside of the magic community. The Maiden Mother Crone has almost touched its toe in mainstream, and that is because of Hecate.
Love it. And when you think about this too, because now I'm kind of like, okay, when you're talking about life in ancient Greece and medieval times, even in the occult revival, it's like, okay, I know a couple little things about there, but now when we're looking at the resurgence of Wicca, or no, excuse me, the resurgence of Hecate with the Gardnerian era with Wicca, for my viewers, it's the 1950s to 1980s. It's a smaller window. It's a very particular window, but when we're thinking about this face of Hecate, this aspect of Hecate, embracing all three aspects, I mean, what a beautiful. gift for women who are just kind of at this point in life, especially the 50s, still kind of blissfully unaware. But I feel like that whole 60s and 70s, and even throughout the 80s, you have this kind of like, burning of the bras, feminism, and I just think that is really cool that,
I think that too was a long time coming for women
yes,
because women
yes.
had been fighting for their rights, fighting for their vote, fighting for, just to be able to put your name on a bank account without your husband's permission.
God.
Um, and as we see the liberation where women are finding their voices, Hecate was right there beside him in this maiden mother crone aspect, giving these women strength to go out and have these voices. And, where people are like, why did she come now? And I'm thinking, because we need her. But more importantly, we did the work for her to come. Like you said,
Oh,
we burned our bras. We
yes.
stood up to the streets for suffrage. We stood out for rights. We did our, and was like, we're ready. And so we did the work. And Hecate was like, I am here to help you. I'm here to give you strength so that you can, make it to the finish line, so to speak.
Ooh, gosh, I really love that. I really love that because I mean, really too, as I'm like getting ready for this video and constantly, it's like, of course, like nothing works like, technology, this and this, and I'm like obstacles, like, first world obstacles, don't get me wrong, especially when we're talking about feminism and women's rights and all this kind of stuff. But still, it's like, oh, isn't it ironic that like everything goes wrong. And when I'm doing a Hecate video, it's like, yes, we keep showing up. And that is exactly, goddess devotion, if you will. That is devotion to the self. And more importantly, I feel like it's very cool, for lack of a better way of putting it, that Hecate is a goddess that embodies all three aspects of divinity, especially at this point in time as we move from then to the modern era. Because I think, just in general, for people, we have, again, like using Christianity, for instance, it's like Jesus Christ peaked at what, 34? I mean, quite literally, Um, but
Yeah, he peaked at 34.
I know, I'm like, all respect,
One
all
way of
respect.
saying it.
I was like, well, that's one way to put it. But with that, as having a devotional practice to a deity of any kind, something that I really enjoy about Hecate is that you can reach out to all aspects of her because life, God willing, does not end at 34. And it's like, yeah, midlife is just the beginning. I mean, really, 34 is like you're just barely entering the mother era. But as far as looking for external sources, and obviously there are any, I'm just using Christianity from my perspective because that's what I grew up with and that's how I relate to this, is that like, if what other teachings, what other aspects do you have? Because we don't have those aspects to kind of attach Jesus with. It's like you got Jesus and then you got God, but he's not even really in the picture versus Hecate. Just, I don't know, it's more of a life journey in a sense where you can be like, how can a crone apply this situation? How can a maiden apply this? How can the mother apply this situation? Because all of those are needed regardless of age.
And those are all different seasons. And
Yeah.
as one season ends and another begins, do you know what? You're walking through a doorway, it's a
Mm.
threshold.
Yes, ma'am.
She is still the goddess of doorways.
Yep.
We think, where the physicality of the doorway has gone to that spiritual astral side of the doorway. Like you said, as you transition from a maiden to a mother, you walk over the threshold and you're like, I'm a mom now. And then as you transition into your cronehood, you reach that point where you're like, yeah, I'm a crone now. And having, like you said, Hecate there within each of those times.
Well, and also being able to embody like the other aspects while you're a crone, because yes, being a crone, for instance, comes with its own responsibilities. Being in the mother season comes with its own, but also knowing when to embrace, like, just because you're a crone doesn't mean you have to live, like a crone per se, right? It's like when to embody the playfulness of the maiden, and when to shift. And kind of with that whole thresholds analogy, doorways analogy, same thing. It's like sometimes you just need a shift to get through the day. It's okay to to see all sides of you, because you are, as we age, right? It's like just because that was then, in a sense, doesn't mean this isn't now. Where, yes, okay, maybe our bodies have physically aged, but our spirits are still within us. Our energy still lies within us, and that's all accessible, even if it was years ago or not.
The one constant that I see in regards to all of her throughout all of the ages, is the those who are reclaiming their sovereignty,
Mm,
you know, and that's why witches like her. That's why healers, survivors, intuitives, you know, root workers, witches, even night workers. Uh,
mm,
she very much is about the wild, intuitive side, and about folks in which, like you said, your voice, your sovereignty, your rights
yes.
to to love Hecate is to love yourself.
Yes. Which definitely brings us into like how Hecate is viewed today, and our sense of the word modern, but we'll just call it Hecate today. Hecate in the 2020s and beyond, in the millennium and beyond. I mean, I feel like as a society, have very much lost that ancestral connection with the truly modern era, which is now, which is technology just plastered in our face, phones, devices constantly in our face. And I feel like Hecate can really help you navigate life where transformations aside, but bringing it back to the old ways. I just feel like more and more we have forgotten.
And it is so important that we know all these little stories and histories. Because now that when you pick up a key for Hecate, it's not just a symbol. There's a whole history behind it. There were people that quite literally put their key in a little dish and left it for the keeper of the keys. That's why we call
Right.
her Hecate. She kept our keys for us.
Thank goodness, because people were losing keys back then.
I'm like thinking, huh, not, yeah, I have some questions. I'm not going to go there. But, and how important it is. I know when I, light a candle, give an offering, I have all that knowledge, and that helps deepen my relationship with her. I love that where she's been and the different ways that she's been honored, the different ways she's been, reverenced. We have to, the word worship is a little yes, sort of, but no, not. Um,
I agree.
yeah, the old gods, we're not so much we worship as much as we're interacting with them, you know.
Honoring, living,
Yeah,
connecting.
yeah, we don't, it's like, the idea of the Abriatic worship, the God above, that's Hecate isn't above. Hecate's within us. Hecate's around us. Hecate is a force that, if we choose, will come into our lives and will give us a little bit of comfort. And, and
Beautiful.
and sometimes that's all we need is just that, knowing that something's out there that truly does care about you, and keeping with we still keep with her, the keys, the Greek and Roman myths of the dogs,
Right.
you know,
Protection.
right. And you and I joked about the fact that she's also, the frogs and
Right.
eels. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
in Roman times, it would have been eels. But at the same time, this was very much part of their diet.
Fair. Fair point. And then just a little teaser too. We're talking about frogs and eels. If this piques your interest, Taren and I actually also did another video that should be out and now at the time of
Yes,
viewing that are the
yes.
five lesser known facts of Hecate, which we discuss things like, yeah, Hecate was associated with frogs and eels. And again, back to talking about grain. Grain, it's what they had back then. Thank goodness I'm not a sushi lady, but thank God we're not eating eel. We got access to other things, but that's exactly it. She has been such an available. She's always been available to me as somebody who just honestly recently started working with her. She's always been available. And I think there's something to be said about that. It's safe, it's comforting, and allowing the journey and the um her aspect to show up to you when you need it is truly magical.
And it's not about grand rituals.
Right. Everyday magic.
This is everyday. This is sincerity,
Mm,
honesty,
yes.
authenticity. You
Respect.
go light a candle, and I don't know what I'm supposed to say, but I wanted to light a candle to you. If that's the best you can come up with, something tells me Hecate is going to be tickled pink. Um, because you're being honest.
Yes.
You're where if you don't have to have fancy words. And you can have almost an everyday conversation. How was your day? Mine was pretty good.
In ways, it's when you're able to connect with a deity, you're really able to apply. I mean, that's really where it boils down to is you're able to apply kind of their teachings, their stories, their wisdom. Simply, maybe it is just their energy and being like, okay, I don't know what I would do. Okay, well, what would a 5,000-year-old goddess do who has seen it all, who's been through it all? I mean, you're not literally being like, but also just kind of opening yourself up. And it's amazing what can come up. But it all starts with lighting that candle, say, even if it's
And
like a,
showing up.
yes,
And you brought up like the offerings, because I've seen so many lists on the appropriate offerings. And each time period, those offerings changed according to what those people had access to. So the most heartfelt, most authentic offering that you can give is from your table.
yes.
What did you cook for yourself? What did you cook for your family? What are your favorite?
Literally,
Literally, yes.
just yes, like go ahead, like next time, like for people who are new to witchcraft and are more of a beginner, if you don't know what to offer, get a meal in gratitude. It doesn't have to be a full portion, but give offer
Right.
and then go
I
bury
normally
it.
get, I do a couple of tablespoons of the different things we have, and I put them in a
Yeah,
little bowl, you know, on it. You can, your favorite food, if
yeah.
whatever is really special to you.
Right. You're not
Uh,
going to be giving her the leftovers from 5 days ago that you're like, well, I guess I got rid of this again, like g- a little
a
offering,
lot
a
of
little
times,
gesture.
and this is something like, because my husband periodically gives me a box of some really good chocolate.
Oh,
I mean, the good stuff. Okay.
mm.
And it
Oh,
is
yes.
such a treat. And I open that box up and I take the first piece out and it goes onto my altar
Oh, oh,
because this is my way of giving something that is really special to me. Because I typically don't like to share my special box of chocolate.
that is true though, right? It's not just the coveted, it is the it is the first. Perhaps, heck, when you're serving your favorite meal, like make that be first. It's intentional because that's what we talk about when we say, respect the spirits, paying homage. Before they would call that worship. Again, this is more like a connection where it's like, hey, I see you and I invite you into my space. You are someone, something that I would like to connect with. I don't know how, but let's start with that, buttering them up a little bit, I guess.
It's a way of something that's very special to me, sharing it with
Yes.
relationship
Yes.
with divinity, my relationship with the Hecate or whatever god or goddess I'm working with at the time, where I'm giving something that's really special to me. And that's what all offerings should be, is something that is special to you, something that you relate to. I did, in honor of Hecate for her feast a couple of weeks ago, I did get some dates
Ooh.
because it is such an old world food.
Fair point. Fair
Yeah.
point.
And I know
Yeah.
that at some point, somewhere in the thousands and thousands of years, and all those people, somebody else put a little bowl of dates up there for her. And
Right.
again, for me personal, this is where we talk about create your own relationship. You get to make up the rules. And these are the things that I've done. All right. It's not everybody has to go out and do them. What works for you? What is special for you? And these little things that I've learned over the years. I've 40 years in the magic community. I've picked up a couple of tricks.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
know, when I first started out, no, I would be like reading the book and I'd be like, the book says I got to put three eggs, three eggs. We need three eggs.
I
And
only have two.
I mean,
Oh.
we have to go to the store. Um, I did all of that. And I was so worried about doing it right. I never did anything.
Well, and again, right, if ending kind of with this, like something to really focus on is that if you're trying to build an intuitive practice with a deity, with anyone, whether it is Hecate, whether it is Aradia, Persephone, whomever, it truly is not about following. Life is not linear. There is no handbook for every single human experience you are going to have. There are guidelines, there are rules, there are, there's a somewhat of a path, but again, especially with Hecate as the keeper of that, gatekeeper, as the light at the crossroads, it's connecting with your higher self to know what you're going to do, how you want it to go, because that is life in a nutshell. How do you want your life to turn out? Yeah, there are things in our lives that we will never be able to change. But one thing that I've really been able to embrace on this season with Hecate is being very mindful of how I speak to myself, how I view myself, and how I view my trajectory, because who's to say? Let's keep shining that light and see where we go.
Oh, I love that. That is just brilliant. I'm like, yes, yes, I agree.
No, thank you. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up today's video, everyone. Huge, huge thank you to Taren with the House of Witchcraft, my OG coven over here. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with your unique approach and your academic perspective on Hecate. Thank you for being here, everyone. Give her a little follow, give her a little like, drop a little love if you enjoyed having Taryn on my channel so we can have her on some more. And make sure too, I will go ahead and drop the link to the 5 things you didn't know about Hecate video launching soon, so you'll have a direct connection with that. Other than that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thanks again, Taryn. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before you go?
No, other than thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Aw.
And so I'm like, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, that's a wrap, everyone. I will catch you on the next one. Okay.
Now I got a thing that's
Figuring it
saying
out.